Okay, inflammation. So remember, there's a reason why your body's inflaming and nothing's happening. So if it's to do with losing weight or just feeling better, you're having an allergic reaction to something you're either eating or drinking. Sometimes you can't be aware of it and you wonder why you bloat. So whenever you put anything in the body that's acidic, man-made, processed, anything like that, so even if it's milk, gluten, wheat, all that stuff is can be really allergic or have an intolerance to, so it's inflammation. So the body's trying to process and get rid of it. And then anything that's a supplement that is, like I say, an amino acid, or depending on how it's made. Superfoods, I probably would doubt it, but you could have an allergic reaction to something that's in there. Or you can even build up an allergic reaction or intolerance to, or like an allergenic reaction to anything that's like you've had too much of. So if you were to have, maybe bananas, every single day and a few of them, like, your body could build up an intolerance and you get sick of that and it just wouldn't do what it used to do in the past. So important things to note. This is why rotation of everything is so crucial. But it's mainly always the protein in foods that you're allergic to. So usually fruits, there's no proteins in there. Veggies, no proteins, very little, except like maybe your potatoes, things like that. Salads, nothing really in there. If you fine tune it all, some seafoods and different things, your salmons and your oysters, prawns, all things like that, they've got it. They've all got different amounts, different ratios. So just remember everything in variety, and even sticking to your blood type is going to do good. I believe there is some science there, but when you're cross-species with people, so cross-species of people, different nationalities, genders and races and all that stuff, it kind of gets a little bit tricky and doesn't always add up to be right, because then you've got different types of skeletal system and muscle mass and endo, meso, ecto, different types of that, and then age and gender, and it's all relevant and then relevant and irrelevant, and then you've got hormones and brain chemistry and whether everything there is firing and working optimally. It's a big science, and a lot of people are struggling to know where to go. So I try to find all the answers that I can, so I can at least send people to the right areas. So whether it be an endocrinologist, dealing in hormones, or a biochemist, something like that, or a neurologist dealing something within the brain and all that stuff, which is important, because any type of an injury, your organism, your vessel you're in, is always trying to heal and recover itself. So the last thing it needs is another stress on every system in the body, all the cells, all your adrenal glands, and just glands in general. It's one more thing in the link that it has to try and detox, flush out, and this is why people just become hooked on things and they don't know what to do and they get lost in life. And a lot of times it's pretty simple with a lot of things. It's just sticking to it, which is a big problem that I see with nearly everyone. And that's life. Food and drink and all that stuff is one of the most enjoyable things of life. But then you got to stop and look at yourself and go, well, am I having too much? Can I stop? How do I stop? I've got to look after my health, my well-being. I've got work I've got to commit to. I've got friends. I've got family. I've just got to survive in general. And I think the biggest thing lacking as well is really getting in touch spiritually within yourself. So thoughts, feelings, emotions, meditation, really working things out, getting to the core of things, and just trying to be in the here and the now, in the moment, rather than having to always worry about everything. And then when you do stop, like people that work I know so hard, and when they do stop, then they get sick and run down. They're pushing their body so hard that they're not actually doing the steps in between, where they actually literally stop for maybe an hour in that day, if they can, and do nothing. It's just sit and relax. The nervous system as well. I always say your adrenal glands, because that's the main thing, that there's so many things linked to the adrenal glands. The drive, the whole of the energy for the brain and the body and everything, the metabolism. So it makes sense that if you're eating all the time, adrenal glands. If you're using so much brain power all the time, adrenal glands for focus, concentration, memory, all that stuff. So it's a vicious cycle. So I just want to do a quick one on that. I wasn't real specific on a lot of things, but just a little bit of everything again. Just things to be aware of, things to be thoughtful of, mindful of, and just in the end learn to chill, unwind, and just relax. Life really is pretty simple, but we make it pretty hard in our heads. Everyone I see, and even just people I know, it's always in their head. So if if there are problems within the brain chemistry and the body, it's going to affect everything as a whole. So if there's problems in the brain, it affects the body. Problems in the body, it affects the brain, and it goes up and down 24/7. So your body's just trying to survive. It's that simple, even when it's in pain or whatever. But we don't want to feel pain on any level. Discomfort, all we want to ever be is just happy and sane, and that's about it. In the end, it's really only family that we sort of seem to cling to, or the partner type thing. Everything else is just second and third type thing. Like, it's not a real essential. But in this day and the world we live in, you know, to survive, yeah, it's full on. But, you know, it depends on what you really need to get you by and survive. You know, you can consume yourself with so many things that in the end, you know, so many people I talk to and work with, they realise that they've gotten older and all that stuff. That stuff they did was great, but it has worn me out. I'm too stressed. I'm too worn out. So, and it does catch up with you, and you will realise all the signs. The signs, symptoms are always there with you, but you choose to actually just go, oh, yeah, okay, so I'm having this one, and then next maybe I have that one. But you don't do anything about it. You just keep doing your normal thing. So, important stuff, and all the best. Take care. That was my cue to knock off. Ciao.